Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Today, we're going to do a combination of strategy trading and some easy language. So we do have a lot of content to cover today. So let's get right to it. The title of today's presentation is, if it comes into our slide, there we go, monitor your trading strategy using custom easy language indicators. A lot of times, if you've been with TradeStation some time, you know that strategies and indicators, they go along with each other, but they're not fully integrated. For example, if you use a strategy, you may have to add the indicator separately just to see the visuals of where the indicator is plotting. So even though we have indicators or we have strategies that are based on indicators, you have to, add these separately to your chart analysis in order to make some additional comparisons. But there are some things that you can do in an indicator that can track your strategy's performance or your strategy's trades. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to customize a strategy, and at the same time, we're going to create an indicator around that strategy to help you monitor those trades. Before we get started, by the way, my name is Jesus Nava. For those that don't know me, I am the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. Always a pleasure to be here, and thank you for your support. Every symbol and idea that we talk about is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone, and past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. We are going to take a look at a strategy. We are going to take a look at its strategy's performance, and we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that what you see in history does not necessarily mean that it will play out the same way going forward. If anybody needs additional information on these disclosures, go to www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, everyone. First of all, I wanted to show you a few words that you can use inside of a strategy to keep track of how the strategy is doing. So these are, if you're not familiar with easy language, don't worry. I usually introduce these classes that way because a lot of people are scared of programming, including myself. I don't consider myself to be a full-blown programmer. I do know easy language, and I can make edits to easy language documents that exist on the TradeStation platform, and I can create some custom simple indicators and strategies, but I don't consider myself to be a programmer. And I guess that's the whole idea behind easy language, to make it as easy as possible so that anybody can dive into programming and create something custom. So going back to what we were saying, these are some of the words that you can use inside your code to keep track of what a strategy is doing. By the way, for those that are not familiar with what a strategy is just a set of rules or conditions that TradeStation follows to place trades. Now, those trades can be historical trades, and that's why it's called back testing. And you can see how the strategy performs against historical data, get some sort of confidence about how the strategy will behave going forward. But it can also be automated, and it can also generate trades in real time as the strategy meets its conditions. That's what a strategy is. So inside of TradeStation, easy language allows you to create these custom strategies. And there are some words that you're going to start using to keep track of that strategy. One of those first words is the market position. At any given moment in the life of a strategy, you want to know if the strategy is long, if the strategy is short, or if the strategy is flat. Market position, as it shows up here in this slide, will provide you that information. This is a reserved word that returns a number and returns 0 if you're flat, meaning you don't have an open position. And it'll be -1 if you're short, and it'll be +1 if you're long. So at any moment, you can create a code that says, if market position equals so-and-so, then do something else. And that's what we're going to take a look at market position in just a moment. You also have the ability to take a look at current shares or current contracts. These are two reserved words that mean the same thing. It's just going to take a look at how many units of the security that you bought or sold short you have, how many shares you have, how many contracts you have. They are interchangeably or interchangeable, so you can use either one, and they both mean the same thing. It's just going to tell you how many units of that security you own. You have the entry price. This will only apply to the most recent entry price. It doesn't look at, it does look at entry or historical entry price, but you have to use a different syntax. But for this particular one that you're looking at on the screen, it just returns the entry price for the specified position. Open position profit or net profit are also similar in terms of tracking profitability. Open position profit includes the current open position, and net profit returns the total dollar amount of all closed strategy trades, both winning and losing. So these are words that, again, you can use inside of a strategy. And if you use certain indicators inside of TradeStation, you probably have seen them before. Now, I did begin the presentation saying that we have strategies and we have indicators separated. Sometimes we have to add them individually to the chart. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that, because nothing works best than a visual. So let me go over here to my TradeStation platform, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. In this example, I have Microsoft is set to a 30-minute interval, and I have about 6 months of historical data. If I go to studies and I click on add strategy, I get access to all the different strategy components that are part of the TradeStation platform. For this presentation, I'm going to use something that is part of the TradeStation platform, is also part of your trading platform, and you can also use it out of the box, which is the Bollinger Bands strategy. I'm selecting the long entry and the short entry, both in this same grouping, and I'm just clicking OK. Now you can see how the strategy automatically finds every single instance where the strategy would have generated a trade. And of course, as I said at the beginning, there's no visual of the Bollinger Bands, because this is a strategy that is following the concept or the idea or the rules of the Bollinger Band, and it's generating trades based on that concept without the need of the bands around the prices, because it's separated. But if I go here to studies and I go to add study and I look for the Bollinger Band study, let me just go to Bollinger Bands here, not this one, this one. Now I get a visual of where the indicator is. And now you can see the relationship between those entries and the plots of the Bollinger Band. Why? Because, yeah, Bollinger Band is going to track extremes, and you can clearly see those extremes because the price has penetrated those bands, the upper band and the lower band. That's where those entries are generated. Does that make sense? So even though they're independent, they're based on each other. Let me go back here to my PowerPoint, because in addition to having all these reserved words that you can use instead of a strategy, the problem here is that you cannot use the same words inside of an indicator. Let me show you. If I try to use market position inside of an indicator, it's going to generate an error. Let me go here to my development environment. I don't have it open yet, but I'm going to go open it, apps, and click on EasyLanguage. Okay. So let me go ahead and create a strategy here first. This will be a strategy. This will be just a test. I'm just going to do an exclamation test 1, and then I'll delete it because I just want to test something really quick. This is a strategy, and I say if let's see, if market position equals 1, then begin, and then I'm just going to add an end right here. In a strategy, if I verify this, it verifies perfectly. There's no errors, 0 warnings. If market position equals 1, then begin and end. Of course, I haven't included any conditions or any actions to take if market position equals 1. But if I do this same exercise, if I go here to new indicator, and I'm just going to call this the same test 1. If I type in the same code in here, oh, that's not what I wanted to type. Let me go here to test 1 here. I'm going to copy this code, and I go to the indicator and I paste it here and I try to verify this. It's going to highlight market position and say position information function not allowed in a study. So this is what we were talking about. You were trying to kind of use the same use a strategy and an indicator in a document where everything is combined. And a lot of times we encounter these limitations that does not allow us to use strategy words inside of an indicator. But there are, of course, workarounds and solutions to this at all times. Before I go anywhere, let me just close out of these, and let me go ahead and remove them so that I don't have these 2 studies laying around. So I'm just going to go here to my open studies or open strategies dialog, and I'm going to go here to all. It's going to list everything inside of my environment, and I call these exclamation test one right here. I'm just going to remove those two. So you can, this is the way that you remove anything from the environment that you've created and you don't want anymore. You have to go inside of this open EasyLanguage document and you can remove it from there. I just had to make sure that, as you can see now they're gone. I just had to make sure that the tabs were not open so that it allows me to delete it. Otherwise, it will say, hey, it's being used somewhere else. I cannot delete. All right, so we already established that some words you can use them in strategies, but some words you cannot. The same happens on indicators. In indicators, you can use some words, but if you try to copy those words into a strategy, you start getting errors. So that's the reason why, let me go back here to my PowerPoint. That's the reason why for anybody that is programming EasyLanguage and wants to reference market position and wants to reference how many shares or contracts you own, or want to reference, the entry price of your position or how much profit you have, we've created a series of reserved words that you can use inside of an indicator, because the ones we just looked at cannot be used in an indicator, but these ones you can. And it can be a small I or a capital I. Remember that EasyLanguage is not case sensitive. So I underscore market position. It says the same thing. It just has an I and an underscore right in front of it, which allows you to put it inside of an indicator. And it's going to return the same thing that it does on a strategy, but you can use it inside of an indicator. You can use I underscore current shares or I underscore current contracts. You can use the I, AVG for average entry price, I underscore open equity, and I underscore closed equity. Does that make sense? So all these reserved words that start with an I underscore, it's because they're designed to work in indicators. There is a very popular indicator inside of the TradeStation platform that already uses these or some of these reserved words for you to track the strategy performance. Let's go ahead and take a look at that on my TradeStation platform. Let me take a look at your question, Sebastian. Can you elaborate on how EasyLanguage know what the market position is and what happens if there are two charts with strategies referring to the same symbol? Yes, good question, Sebastian. And remember that when you create a strategy, the strategy is looking at the symbol and the positions of the chart where that strategy is applied. So for example, I put in a strategy here, the Bollinger Bands. This Bollinger Band strategy is running on Microsoft on this very specific 30-minute chart. If I open up a separate chart of Microsoft and add a different strategy, that is something different. So for example, market position, if I use market position on this chart, it'll know what position I have on Microsoft on this chart. So that's how it separates, the market positions. It's very exclusive to the chart where the strategy is being applied. So that's something that we do well at TradeStation, where it keeps things separated when it comes to strategies. In fact, if you have multiple chart analysis windows running on the same security, let's say Microsoft, and you go to the trade manager, it's going to list your strategy position for each one of your Microsofts based on the number of charts you have. So it also keeps those separate as well. It's not going to combine your strategy positions from one chart to another. In here, let me do something. Let me go to studies and add a study that automatically tracks strategy performance. Oh, I went to the wrong place. I'm sorry. Studies, add study. There we go. Very top. All right. And I'm going to go here and go to strategy. There we go. Strategy equity. That's what the indicator is called. Take a look. It's called strategy equity, but I find it in the list of indicators. And if I click OK, and there we go. That's what the strategy equity indicator tells me that the strategy is doing. I wasn't expecting this color, but interesting. So Leonardo is asking, so I can be long Microsoft in one chart and short Microsoft in another chart? Theoretically, yes. For example, let me just demonstrate that, because I know that I'm getting a couple questions based on that. If you look at my Bollinger Band strategy at the moment, I can tell that it's short at the moment because I don't have any other signals on this section of the chart. So the last signal was a short signal. Now, let me go ahead and open up another chart, apps, chart analysis. Let me do another strategy here. So, okay, studies, add strategy. And let's do, on this one in particular, I'm going to do, let's do the Keltner channel. All right, in the Keltner channel, I'm also short. So let me go and look for a security. I wanted to look for a strategy that take me in the opposite direction. Let's go and try something different. So studies, add strategy. Let's do inside bar and see what happens. Okay, so inside bar, you can see that the most recent trade is a long trade. So these two strategies are on Microsoft. One is on a 30-minute, the other one is on a 5-minute. So let me go ahead and automate strategy so we can connect this to the trade manager. I'm just going to double click on the little arrow and I'm going to display this in the trade manager. This is generate strategy orders in the trade manager. That's all that I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing here. Let me see if it lets me though, just for display. Sure did. So now if I open up here on a different workspace and I open up the trade manager and I go to my strategy positions, you can see that my strategy is tracking a long position on the 5-minute and it's also tracking a short position on the 30-minute. Does that make sense? Now, of course, I said theoretically I'm long and short on the same security because as we know, TradeStation doesn't allow you to be long and short on the same account for the same security. You can probably, circumvent that by opening up separate TradeStation accounts, but I'm not sure if there are other complexities around that. But when it comes to the strategy, what I wanted to make the point here is the strategy is independent and it's very exclusive to the chart where it's running. It doesn't look at any other charts or any other positions you have. So based on this example, yes, you can see that I'm long and short at the same time. All right, let me go back here to my strategy. We were looking at this indicator and I wanted to show you something really cool. I'm going to right click on this indicator at the bottom and I'm going to go to edit EasyLanguage for strategy equity. Every indicator and every strategy is part of the TradeStation platform and you're able to open it. And take a look at the words we see here. I_open equity and I_ closed equity. Those are the same words that we saw in our PowerPoint. Open equity. Oh, there we go. Open equity and closed equity. Same exact words, but this allows me to use the strategy performance inside of an indicator. Now, one thing to keep in mind, let me go back here to my platform, is that this indicator will only read the open equity and closed equity of the strategy that is inside the chart. If I disable this strategy, let me right click on one of these signals and I'm going to disable one of the strategies, the long entry. And I didn't do the other one, but I can do it right here. So studies, enable, disable strategies. Yeah, if I disable the strategy, notice how the strategy equity indicator clears out. I'm not sure why it still keeps that line, but let me go ahead and refresh. I'm going to do Control R. Okay, when I do Control R, you can see how the strategy equity indicator just flats at 0 because the only information that it reads is information from the strategy that is inside of this chart. It doesn't look at anything else. Even though I have that other chart with the other strategy, is unable to read that because that's on a totally separate chart analysis window. Let me go here to my strategies list and I'm just going to turn those strategies on. You can see the status is off here. All I need to do is click on status to turn the status from off to on. Then it recalculates again. Now, the way that the indicator runs, let me go all the way here to the back of the chart. Why does my chart? Okay, let me reset the scale here. Hold on. Okay, so this is the very beginning of the chart. You can see that at the very beginning of the chart, my strategy equity is at 0. When it opens the first trade, which happened right here back in October, it based on the strategy, we can see that it bought 100 shares of Microsoft. And at that point, you see how the strategy equity indicator starts calculating. This gray line that you see here is what EasyLanguage calls the open equity. It tracks the open equity and it tracks that open equity as a line. On the second trade, which is this short trade, then it realizes profit. And that's why you have this histogram, this red histogram showing what your profits are. And it has that look of a flat top because your closed equity does not change in the middle of a trade. It only changes from closed trade to closed trade. So you have two things going on here. You have how the open position is being affected by every single tick. That's why you see the line ticking up and down. And then you have the closed equity that only gets adjusted from trade to trade, from closed trade to closed trade. Now, in this case, I had a sequence of winning trades, and that's why you see the closed equity bumping up. But then you see a closed trade, or I'm sorry, a losing trade, which is represented by this red dotted line, dropped my equity right here from this top based on the loss of that trade. Does that make sense? So you have these two things going on inside of this indicator that allow you to keep track of your strategy. We're going to do an exercise right now that will do something similar. We'll look at a strategy, and at the same time, we'll display something on the chart to help you in the monitoring or in the visualization of the strategy. Let me go ahead and remove this equity indicator from the bottom. Let me go back here to the very front of the chart. And this is a strategy, by the way, that is flipping you back and forth between a long trade and a short trade. It doesn't have any other ways of managing risk. For example, notice that the most recent trade is a short trade, since that date, which was April 8th. This happened last week. We entered a short trade, but the prices have been going up. If the prices go on and on up without triggering a trade on the bottom band, I'm stuck on that losing trade because I have no stops. I have nothing, controlling my risk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to design a strategy that has some exits. It's going to be an exit strategy that you can combine with any entry and keep track and exit, keep track of your risk and exit when certain levels are hit. And we're going to use ATR for that. Let me go over here to my development environment. Did I close it? Here it is. Okay, let me close this. I don't need this. And I'm going to create a new strategy. Okay, we're going to call this @MC for masterclass. This is our prefix to keep everything together. And I'm going to call this ATR, target and stop. And that's what we're going to create. Just a strategy that uses ATR calculations to generate a target and a stop on any strategy that we use. I'm going to click OK, and let's start to write it. And as I write it, please let me know if you guys have any questions or any doubts about what I'm doing. If you haven't written in the EasyLanguage, don't think that you need to, know this from the beginning. This, of course, takes practice, but this is just the way that you can easily put some ideas into EasyLanguage and make it into something you can use on your platform, especially things that are not part of the platform that you're able to bring in and customize. Okay, I'm going to create some inputs. Inputs are ways in which you can make the strategy or indicator a little bit more flexible. We're going to do the strategy, and then we're going to create the indicator. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why we're going to do that. So the inputs on my strategy are going to be the ATR length, which I'm going to set to 10, just as a starting point. ATR length, by the way, if you look at the ATR length, this is a word that I'm making up in my EasyLanguage document because I want it to be a way for me to customize the strategy. Maybe today I want to use 10 bars in the calculation of the ATR, but maybe next day I want to use 15 or 20. So this gives you flexibility. It also allows you to optimize a strategy. Any input that is numeric, you can optimize. And that's a totally different subject, but it does allow you to do strategy optimizations. So I need target ATR, and I'm going to use 5 as a starting point, and stop ATR, I'm going to use 3. So you already from the very beginning can see my line of thinking here. I'm going to use 5 ATRs, or 5 as a factor, 5 times the ATR value as a profit target, and 3 times the ATR value as the stop loss. So that's what we're going to do. And our variables are going to be the target price, because once you have the factor and the ATR, you're able to multiply it. Then you have to calculate what's called a target price and the stop price. As I start writing the code, it'll start making sense. So don't stress about not understanding what I'm doing, but every word that I'm typing up, most of them are going to be made up words, like inputs, the ATR length, target ATR, stop ATR. Those are made up words, and you can make up your own words as well. If stop ATR doesn't make sense in your mind and you want to call it ATR stop, feel free to do so. Same here in target ATR. If it makes sense in your head to call it ATR target, do that. I'm just creating words as they come to mind. So I have the 2 variables, and now I have to define what those 2 variables are. So target price, whenever I'm doing this presentation, I don't know, my editor starts getting slow. The target price is going to be entry price. We already know what entry price does, right? Let me go back here to my PowerPoint, because if you look at entry price, returns the entry price for the specified position. So if we are in a position, I know the entry price, and I want to calculate what my target price is based on the ATR. So the entry price plus, and we're going to do ABG. This is the function that calculates average true range for the ATR length times target ATR. I'll explain in a moment what this does. Okay. So what I'm doing here is the first thing that I'm doing is calculating ATR. Everybody sees this word right here in magenta or purple. ABG, true range, is something that's built into the language, and it calculates what the ATR is for any symbol, any security. That's why I notice that I'm not saying Microsoft here. I'm just saying ABG true range, and I'm putting ATR length, which is my input, because it does need to know how many bars is the ATR using in its calculation. And I'm starting that at 10. But rather than putting inside or hard coding a 10 in here and putting in the input name so that I can change it on the fly, and I'll show you how you can change that. But then once I calculate the ATR, which is this function, it's going to multiply that by the number of ATRs that I've assigned to the target ATR, multiplies that times 5, and then it adds on to the entry price. So you have the entry price, and then it adds on this ATR calculation that's going to set that as your target price. Does that make sense? Let's go ahead and calculate the stop price. The stop price is very, very similar. Again, I am defining what stop price means. Remember that stop price, you declared it up here as one of your variables. What I'm doing here is telling EasyLanguage what stop price means. And stop price means my entry price minus, because it's a stop. And I'm going to calculate all this and paste it over here. But instead of the target ATR, and I'm going to multiply it by the stop ATR. There you go. The stop ATR is defaulted at 3 up here. So you have a 5-to-3 ratio for the target and the stop. Now you have the two calculated levels. Now all we need to do is put in some strategy action words. Okay. So, okay. Now, of course, this target price. Oh, I misspelled the target here. Target price. Okay, so the target price and the stop price, mathematical formulas here work if you are in a long trade. If you are in a short trade, your target has to say minus because your target is below, right? So this too, the definitions only work when the market position is long, when you're long. Now, you need to know when you're long and when you're short, and that's why we're going to be using market position to check what the strategy is at the moment. Is it long or is it short? So in my code, I'm going to say if market position equals 1, then begin. Only calculate my target and my stop if I am in a long trade. Let me tap these so that I can see that these are actions based on this if then statement. Only come in here if market position equals 1. I'm going to calculate my target price, my stop price, and then I'm just going to do my order actions. Sell, next bar at target price, limit, sell, next bar at stop price, stop. So what you're doing is generating 2 trades on the same bar, one at a target and one at a stop. It'll work very similar like an OCO. If one gets filled, the other side doesn't do anything. So this is a way for you to, protect your position with a target and a stop. And at the very end, I'm just going to say end. Now, this is pretty cool. And because now you're creating a strategy that calculates ATR and sets exits based on, your target price and stop price. Now, this is only if the position is long. Let's do the short side. So I'm going to copy this whole section and just paste it down here. And I'm going to say if market position equals -1, -1, which is if you're short, my target price is going to be my entry price minus my average true range with my target. All I need to do is just switch the mathematical operators here and make sure that my target and my stop are going in the right direction. And then sell next bar. Now, in a short trade, we're not selling because it wouldn't work. We need to buy to cover. That would be the action to exit a short position. Buy to cover. Next bar at stop price, stop. Does that make sense? Let me verify this and see if everything works. Okay, everything works. Now, let me go ahead and I'm not sure if you can copy from the chat, but I'm going to paste it here. See if you can copy all right, that's my code right there. I'm not sure if you can copy that from the chat. And if you cannot, I'll be glad to share this with anyone if you just send me an email. The email address is education at TradeStation.com. All right. So let's go ahead and, oh, what did I do? Okay, let's go ahead and put that strategy inside of my chart and see what happens. Okay, in here, I'm going to go to studies, add strategy, and I'm going to go to at MC. We call this ATR, target and stop. Okay, you can see how the strategy has these labels that say cover, cover two, cover number two. That's because we didn't provide pretty labels. So let me go ahead and do that fix for now. Let me go back here to my code, and here we go. For sell, this is my target. Let's see, target, long target. This is just the label that I'm adding so that I know which exit was triggered. And this is my short, I'm sorry, this is my long stop. And I just add the labels here. This is my short underscore target. And here, this is, the label has to be inside quotations, by the way, short stop. So now when I verify, instead of having those weird, cover number two, now I see which exit signal was triggered, the short stop. And here's the short stop. Here's the long stop. So here's the target. The one target was triggered right here, the short target. So you see how the strategy is exiting my entries. Now you can see that before adding the exit strategy, this was my most recent entry. It didn't have all these other ones going forward. Those showed up after I made the modifications and I added this strategy. What I want to do now, though, that's my stop right there. What I want to do, though, is have a visual of what the strategy may be doing. And let me explain what I mean by that. Let me go to a different time frame. Okay, this is a perfect example right here. Same strategy, but you can see that my strategy is long at the moment. But what I don't see, what I don't have visibility of, is where my target and my stop is. I know that the strategy is calculating the ATR, right? Because we put it in the code. And it's probably generating those exits for me, but I don't see them. I don't see them right here on the chart. It'd be great for me to see what that level of stop and target is, to see if it's appropriate based on historical movement, to see if it's the level that I want. I can go here to the strategy, to the trade manager, and you can see that for my 5-minute chart, I have two orders being generated. One at 391 and the other at 384. This is my stop and this is my target. But I'd like to see those prices reflected here on my chart. If it's 391, I don't see where that stop level is. And that's the reason why we want to connect sometimes strategies with indicators, because indicators allow us to plot lines or plot crosses or dots that gives us a better visual. Let me go back here to my strategy code. And this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to copy this code and I'm going to create an indicator out of it. I'm going to go here to new indicator. This will be at MC, ATR, stop and target. I could just call it the same. And I'm just going to paste in here. Now, of course, I'm going to start making some modifications here, because if you try to verify this indicator we copied the strategy code into the indicator. And the first thing that gets highlighted is market position. Why? Because market position is for strategies. If you wanted to use market position in an indicator, all you need to do is add an I and an underscore in front of it. Let me verify one more time. Now you can see that market position is not highlighted anymore. Now it's entry price. Now entry price, I cannot just add an I and an underscore because it doesn't exist. If I try to verify this, it doesn't exist. It doesn't turn blue. Why? Because the indicator word has AVG in front of it. So make sure that you remember to add AVG as part of the word. So I'm going to copy this and put it in here. If I click on verify one more time, market position here is highlighted. Let me go ahead and replace it with this one. And entry price is going to have to be this one. So let me replace that one too as well. Now let me verify one more time. Now it's highlighting the word sell. Why? Because you cannot sell inside of the strategy. What I do want to happen though, is I want this to plot. And the plot statements, let me see what I can do here. All I want to plot is my target price. That's all I need. I'm going to call this target. There we go. And for the other one is going to be plot 2. And I just want to plot the stop price. That'll give me the visual of where the stop price and the targets are. All right, does that make sense? All right, I'll copy this code into the chat also. Let me spell plot correctly. All right, and then I just have to do the other side. Let me go ahead and copy this and paste it here with the switching of the mathematical operators, and that's it. Let me verify, and everything gets verified. Let me go ahead and put this in the chat to see if you guys can copy it, but that's the indicator code. And let me go ahead and change the properties while we're at it, because I want to make sure that I have the right colors. So plot one, let me chart color. So for the target, let's use a cyan. And for the stop, let's use a sort of magenta. Let's use magenta here. And for the chart style, instead of a line, I want to use a cross. And let's use a thick cross. That way you don't have a jagged line all the way at the top and at the bottom. You have these crosses that tell you where the level is. Let me verify this one more time. And let's put this on my chart. Okay, let's see. Studies, add study. Let's go here to add MC, ATR, target, and stop. Uh-oh, it put the indicator at the bottom, which I can fix that very easily. And maybe the crosses are a little bit too big. Let me go back here to my development environment. What I need to do is the following. I can right click, properties. I have to change the scaling first. And the scaling has to be the same axis as the underlying data. And on the style, let me just drop the thickness a little bit more. Then verify again. And let's go ahead and put it on the chart one more time. Studies, add study, ATR, stop, and target. There we go. Now, the entries here, I'm not sure if those are the right levels based on what the market's doing. Doesn't seem like it's, what I wanted to show you though, it's a plot. It's plotting the level, you know. Now comes the exercise or the task of making sure that it is exactly what we wanted it to be. You know, this is a long trade, and this is being tracked as my target and my stop based on my specifications. I may have missed, you know, a mathematical operator. It seems like in my long trade, my target is closer than my stop, and it should be the inverse. I may have messed that code up. Let's see. Oh, because I need to see, when I copied it, I didn't change this to -1. So market positions -1, it's a short. That's why the target price is below. That was a problem. Let me verify this. When I go back here to my strategy, there we go. Now this looks a little bit better. Now the target is 391.44. You see the price or the value up here that correlates with the trade manager, 391.33. There's a little bit of variation there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a little bit closer than what it was before. Sebastian's asking, can you have multiple entry types and exits that correlate specific entry type? For example, market position equals -1. Market position will only return 3 types of entries: long, short, or no position at all. 0 is flat. That's what, you know, market position is designed to do. If you're trying to identify your entry type and you have multiple that you want to identify, you'd have to probably use other sorts of variables that you create yourself that pretty much contain the type of strategy or the type of order that's being generated. So you can keep track of the orders that are generated and have variables that change according to those entries. That would be the way to keep track of different order types, because market position only keeps track of those 3. All right, so that's my exercise. Interesting that you can use strategy information inside of an indicator. And of course, this would only work if you have a strategy in place. Remember, they go hand in hand. So if I were to remove the strategy, this indicator doesn't plot, because one of the things that the indicator does, it grabs entry price from the strategy. And if there's no strategy, then it has nowhere to calculate that entry price from, so it won't return anything. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of times you're going to be adding this indicator and it doesn't show anything. It's because it needs information from a strategy. All right, everyone, this is my class for today. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the TradeStation Masterclass. We do these classes every Tuesday, so make sure that you look at our events calendar for these advanced type of classes. We are doing a lot of futures trading content. Sometimes the masterclass slot, Tuesdays at 11 a.m. is taken by one of these master classes on Futures Plus. Just make sure that you keep an eye on the events calendar. anytime that you want to attend one of these so that you know the topic that's being covered, okay? Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in my future class. Goodbye, everyone.